Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is right here, everyone. Thank you for joining me for some more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. And it is wartime, by the way. We are in a state of war. Scientology is definitely in a state of war. Remember, guys, there's currently 5 lawsuits against David Miscavige and Scientology. And you add on top of that a grand jury investigation into obstruction of justice. And it's a really bad day, not only to be in a cult, but to be a cult leader. The world's smallest cult leader, Lil Captain David Miscavige. Okay, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about one of the many lawsuits. Today, specifically, we're talking about a hearing that just occurred this morning in the Bixler versus Scientology et al. Lawsuit. Now, this is the lawsuit that I think it's 3 or 4 of Danny Masterson's victims and one of the husbands of one of the victims filed against David Miscavige, Scientology, and Danny Masterson for the harassment, stalking, intimidation, and fair game tactics they've been subjected to since the LAPD reopened their investigation into Danny Miscavige, into Danny Masterson. Sorry, getting my DMs mixed up. Since the LAPD reopened their investigation into Danny Masterson in 2016. And this lawsuit was filed in August 2019. And the lawsuit, and this lawsuit for the harassment was brought before the district attorney of Los Angeles filed the criminal charges against Danny Masterson. So this lawsuit predates the criminal trial. Once the criminal trial, once the charges were brought and the trial was going on, this lawsuit that we're talking about right now was put on hold. There was a stay put on the lawsuit. And it's always been known that once Danny Masterson was sentenced, that this lawsuit would not be, the stay on this lawsuit would not be removed until after Danny was sentenced. So Danny was sentenced early September 7th, I believe. And today was the hearing to remove the stay in the lawsuit. Now, to nobody's surprise, Scientology did not want the stay on this lawsuit removed. They were arguing that the stay remain. And I'm going to share with you the filing that was made. This is a joint filing by the plaintiffs and the defense, giving their various positions on what they wanted to have happen at this hearing. And I do find this interesting. So by the way, I don't want to bury the lead. The name of this video was New Twist in the Lawsuit Against David Miscavige and Danny Masterson. The twist, guys, is that Danny Masterson is going to be allowed to plead the fifth during the proceedings of this lawsuit. And that is a new understanding of the situation. I and others that I've spoken to on this channel have been under the impression that once Danny was found guilty and sentenced, he would no longer be allowed to plead the fifth in the civil proceeding. And that was going to be a very big deal, that he wouldn't have that protection. It turns out that he's allowed to continue to plead the fifth until his entire appeals process has expired in the criminal matter. Also, I saw an argument raised yesterday that because he was not found guilty of the charges he was facing with respect to Jane Doe 3, Chrissy Carnell Bixler. It's okay to use her name at this point. And and to be clear, the jury did not find Danny Masterson not guilty with respect to the charges about Jane Doe 3. It simply could not come to a unanimous verdict. So it was a hung jury, mistrial, and Danny can potentially be retried in the future for the charges relating to Jane Doe 3. Because Jane Doe 3 is one of the plaintiffs in this lawsuit. In fact, she's the lead plaintiff. That is another reason Danny would be allowed to plead the fifth. That is potentially a problem, but it's only a problem with respect to Danny Masterson's involvement in this lawsuit. But if you ask me, I think the attorneys care much more about Scientology and David Miscavige's involvement in the intimidation and the stalking and the fair game and all that stuff, more so than Danny Masterson. That's just my hunch. Okay, let's take a look at this real quick. The position of the Church of Scientology International and Religious Technology Center. The church defendants maintain that the current stay should continue because it's unclear whether the plaintiffs are filing an amended complaint. At the meet and confer, the church defendants asked the plaintiffs if they were intending to file an amended complaint, and plaintiffs responded that they are contemplating an amendment and would notify all parties on September 25th if they were doing so. The discovery stay should be continued if an amendment is forthcoming so that the parties know of the current allegations when propounding and responding to discovery. The church defendants maintain that the discovery stay should continue for the following additional reasons. Masterson asserts his Fifth Amendment rights to object to any discovery as to him. Yet plaintiff's case against the church is based on allegations that Masterson was an agent of the church defendants. My word. The church defendants will thus need to conduct discovery of Masterson, but cannot unless the plaintiffs abandon the agency allegations. Plaintiffs have not agreed to do so. 2, the church defendants contend that Masterson's invocation of the Fifth Amendment cannot be imputed to them. No discovery should proceed until there is a motion practice to resolve this issue. 3, the church defendants have filed complaints with the LAPD against the plaintiffs for filing false police reports against church defendants. Oh my God, we have to talk about that for a moment. For those of you who've been paying attention pretty closely to this, you might already know this, but for the rest of you, let me explain real quick, very briefly, that Danny Masterson's criminal defense team was found to have leaked sensitive discovery files in the criminal matter to Scientology civil attorneys. Now, the court more or less ruled that it was Thomas Mesro and Sharon Applebaum who made that leak, and that very well may be true. But I would like to point out that Scientology's attorney in this issue that we're talking about right now, the civil case, one of Scientology's attorneys, his daughter was on the defense team. Now, due to the timing as to when his daughter was brought due to the timing that his daughter was brought onto the defense team, it doesn't seem likely that his daughter was the source of the leak. But I'm not ruling it out. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so they leaked the so Danny's criminal defense team leaks all this information to the civil defense team, and the civil mainly Vicky Podboreski. And Vicky takes the information that was illegally leaked to her and uses that information to file complaints with the LAPD that the Jane Does are filing false complaints to the LAPD. It's absolutely crazy. Okay, so Scientology says, the church defendants have filed complaints with the LAPD against the plaintiffs for filing false police reports against the church defendants. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to repeat myself because to me, this is just too funny. Scientology's attorney is filing complaints with the LAPD that the Jane Does have filed false complaints with the LAPD. And they only know this because information was illegally leaked to them. I say know this in quotation marks. They only have the ability to claim they know such a thing because discovery information was illegally shared with them from the criminal trial. Like, oh my God, I cannot wait to see what the judge actually says about all this shit. Okay, so, all right. Those complaints concern the same false allegations of harassment raised in this lawsuit. The LAPD has stated that it is investigating the church's complaints. Oh, I do want to say one thing because I think more has been made of this than there really is to make of this. My understanding is that the complaints that have been filed with the LAPD by Scientology civil attorneys are the type of complaints that, like, you're not allowed to ignore them just due to the policies and procedures that are in place. You have to look into them. You can't just be like, get out of here. You have to investigate. And so, it's been reported that the LAPD is taking these concerns seriously. I don't know that there's evidence the LAPD is taking these complaints by Scientology seriously. They're taking them precisely as seriously as they are required to by their procedure to take them. I just wanted to add those 2 cents. Okay, the LAPD has stated that it is investigating the church's complaints. Judicial economy warrants extending the stay until those complaints are resolved. And 4, the plaintiffs have called for an investigation of their allegations of harassment by the church defendants that form the basis of this lawsuit. This fact alone should stay civil discovery against the church defendants until the LAPD closes the false reports of harassment against the church defendants as unfounded. Oh my God, this stuff is so childish. Okay. The position of the one convicted serial rapist and Scientologist in good standing, Daniel Masterson. Mr. Masterson also maintains that the current stay must remain in place, at least until such time that Mr. Masterson's appeals from the criminal matter are fully and finally resolved. In addition, Mr. Masterson still faces potential criminal jeopardy with respect to the 3rd mistried count as a result of the 2 hung juries in the criminal cases. The people have not dismissed that count with prejudice. Okay, so guys, that just means that he can be retried for that count with respect to Jane Doe 3. Accordingly, Mr. Masterson could be retried on that count. Okay. As a result, Mr. Masterson intends to preserve his 5th Amendment rights in the event that, whatever, we don't care. We get the idea. Okay. The plaintiff's position. Now, this is the Jane Does and one of their husbands. Now that Mr. Masterson has been sentenced pursuant to his convictions, the stay of this 4-plus-year-old case should be lifted to allow this matter to proceed. Certain of the defendants' arguments in support of their desire to maintain a stay of this case would support a stay. You know what? I don't think we actually need. We understand the Jane Does want this lawsuit to move forward. They want discovery to move forward, and that is perfectly understandable. Well, guess what, guys? The judge ruled in favor of the Jane Does. The stay on this case has been lifted. Discovery will proceed. And I'm going to read from one online source that posted an update about this that says, the judge lifts the stay in the lawsuit, but warns Danny Masterson's victims to be careful what you wish for. And this is a little interesting. So the judge granted the request to lift the stay, and so that the lawsuit can proceed with discovery. He did so over the objections of Danny Masterson and Scientology, but he did say, be careful what you wish for. He was pointing out that although the sentencing of Masterson has occurred, he still has his 5th Amendment protection against self-incrimination as long as he is appealing his convictions. And that is a process that, and this is news to me, guys, could take a couple of years. By that time, the clock may have run out for discovery in this lawsuit, and the plaintiffs will be out of luck as far as getting Masterson to give up evidence that the Jane Does might need in this case. But here's where it gets interesting. The attorneys for the Jane Does said they were prepared to take that risk and confirmed that they wanted the stay lifted anyway. Masterson was not in the courtroom, but he was represented by his civil attorney, Andrew Bretler. Scientology was represented by William Foreman, Robert Mangles, and Matthew Hanks. It is Robert Mangles' daughter who was made a partner at Sean Hawley's law firm and brought on to the Danny Masterson case after the first trial and before the second trial. Okay, so let's see. Yes, the trial date is set for September 25th, with the understanding that that's almost certainly going to change. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm reading into this, okay? Here's what I'm inferring. When the judge basically says, more or less, you guys aren't going to be able to get shit out of Danny Masterson as far as discovery goes in this case. Now, that's not exactly what the judge said, but that's kind of my that's my paraphrasing of it. When the attorney said, we're prepared to take that risk, we would like to stay lifted anyway. What that means to me is they're in this for Scientology. They're in this for David Miscavige. Danny Masterson can plead the 5th all damn day. It don't make a bit of difference as far as the discovery to the Church of Scientology International and the Religious Technology Center and David Miscavige. It just doesn't matter. Now, when you look at the attorney, look at the law firms. Oh boy, did I close the window? Damn it. I closed the window. When you look at the 2 law firms that have taken on this case, they are two law firms that should strike absolute terror into the heart of Lil Captain David Miscavige. And when the judge says, you guys aren't going to be able to really get much out of Danny, and they're like, that's okay with us. I think that means that these guys are really on board, because I think these are firms that don't take on cases, they take on causes. And I think they're looking at Scientology as a cause that they have set their sights on. That is my hope. That is my understanding. And that is what I am going to infer into everything we have just read. That's pretty much it on this. There is so much more to come later today, you guys. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, please, if you're one of the 2,000 people watching live right now. So much more to come. Real quick, a few super chats, and we'll call it a wrap on this one. Hi, Osa. We have cookies and freedom. Join us. Thank you, Jesse. Lulu92, attorney Kate, I think that's Kate Mangles, made partner in January 2023 after 5 years at the firm. Indeed, I've received emails from so many of you with the information about that. So thank you all of you. I really appreciate when you help me with that internet super sleuthing. Okay, Devin Laura says, okay, so big picture question. Let's say everything goes our way legally with these lawsuits. How many years do you think it'll take until Scientology collapses? That is an impossible question to even speculate about. I really don't even know. But I got to tell you, I'm also I'm all for properly managing expectations, even if it takes 20 years. Like even if it takes 20 years, that's totally okay with me. I'm here for the ride all the way down. And it also depends on how you define collapse. For me, I would consider the ultimate and supreme victory getting them criminally prosecuted for violations of various RICO statutes and having their tax exempt status taken away. Anything that happens after that, I don't care. Like, how long could the Church of Scientology survive after losing its tax exempt status? I don't care. Could it be 5 years, 10 years? Could they, would they ever truly, honestly, really go away? It's such an interesting conversation. Once you take away their tax exempt status, you remove a very important type of protection that they enjoy in the courts right now. And that is the protection afforded to them by the IRS, granting them religious tax exemption. And that protects them in some of the most ridiculous ways. So, for example, courts are forbidden from interpreting religious scripture. And although Scientologists don't use words like religion and scripture in their real lives, they pretend that they do when they're dealing with the media and the courts. So technically speaking, in Scientology, all of L. Ron Hubbard's policies and all of his technical bulletins are considered religious scripture. So when Scientology is asking the courts to enforce, for example, their religious arbitration agreements, the courts aren't allowed to read the policy letters governing, or the policy letters that Scientology claims govern the procedures of these religious arbitrations, and say, that's not a fair arbitration process. That doesn't even, like, this doesn't even meet basic contract law. Like, these contracts aren't valid. Scientology asks the court to enforce the validity of its contracts without the courts being allowed to interpret the language in the contracts. It's batshit crazy. Okay, so if you remove Scientology's religious protection and you remove their tax exemption, you also open them up to what would be a windfall of lawsuits for which they would not have the same protection. So could Scientology be bankrupted through lawsuits? Absolutely. Is there some way Scientology would still manage to continue to exist even if that occurred? Probably. That's just kind of the nature of things and corporations and entities and whatever. So anyway, I'm being really long-winded about this, but for me, taking Scientology down, or the collapse of Scientology, would be the revocation of its tax-exempt status, pursuant to conviction of a variety of criminal charges, almost certainly involving RICO statutes. And there you go. That's my long answer. Thank you, Devin. Okay, David Miscavige has joined the chat. Welcome to the chat, Lil Captain Dave. OOC. I don't know what that means. Would Miscavige take an immunity deal if it required a lengthy allocution? I don't know what allocution means because I grew up in a cult. But no, David Miscavige would never take any immunity deal, in my personal, humble opinion. Telperion, 100th anniversary of Scientology would be a nice goal. The same year, Danny The same year Danny is first up for parole, 2053. Well, I'll tell you what. I know I said if it took 20 years, that would be fine by me. I think 30 years is much too long. There's no way it's going to take 30 years to get Scientology's tax exemption. In my personal opinion, there's no way it will take 20 years. And the only reason I even say something like 10 or 15 years is, guys, you see how slow the wheels of justice turn. I mean, you see how Scientology in one major civil lawsuit that they settled a number of years ago, they managed to delay all of the proceedings for 9 years. This is in the Laura DiCrescenzo case that Scientology settled for a ton of money that they wish nobody knew about, but a lot of people know about it. And I believe, and you guys can fact check me on this, from the day Laura DiCrescenzo filed her lawsuit to the day Scientology settled, and they settled like the day it was scheduled to go before a jury, I believe it was 9 years. And that's just something like a civil suit. That's not when they're, fighting for their literal existence, which is, I think, what would be happening in some sort of a RICO case against Scientology. You know what I mean? They would literally be fighting for their existence. So if they can drag a civil case on for 10 years, and actually, I realize they probably have more power to delay a civil case than they would a criminal prosecution. At least that's just, my opinion as I sit here right now, but that would be a good topic for me to chat with my lawyer friend, Zach, about. Anyway, I'm still being long-winded about this. Oh, that's the only reason I say like 10 or 15 years, perhaps, because we just know how good Scientology is at delaying and all that kind of stuff. So, but definitely sooner than 30 years. Definitely sooner than 30. Okay, Daniel Carruthers, why did the East Grinstead Sea Org bus get stuck in the roundabout? Because the bus driver made it go right. That's actually a pretty good joke, Daniel. I thought it was going to suck. When I started reading this joke, I was like, this joke's going to suck. That's a really good joke. Thank you for that. All right, everyone. That's it for me for right now. So much more to come this afternoon and later this evening. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me this afternoon. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And I forgot there was something else I wanted to share with you guys. I've told myself that at least once a day, I want to remind everybody that Mr. Mark Bunker, a.k.a. Wise Beard Man, an OG warrior in exposing Scientology fraud and abuse, is running for re-election to the city council in Clearwater, Florida. Mark Bunker has humiliated David Miscavige in ways no one else has ever been able to. Scientology's never been elected to the Clearwater City Council. A Scientologist has never been elected to the Clearwater City Council. Mark Bunker showed them that not only can they not get one of their own members elected, they couldn't keep him from getting elected. You better believe they're going to try to keep him from getting reelected. My channel right now has about 1 million unique viewers per week. If every one of you out there donated $1, or some mathematical variation thereof, we could get Mark Bunker elected hands down. Scientology is going to do everything they can to get him elected, and so is the to keep him from getting reelected. And so is the political establishment that has been hopelessly corrupted by Scientology's influence. So if you're watching this video, please consider donating a few bucks to Mark's campaign. I've put a link in the description down below. All right, that really is it this time. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right